I think we've got a couple minutes and then we should be all good.
I've hit record.
Perfect.
Thanks, Sandy.
Great.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brian Mack. I'm an arbitrator at the Department of Labor and Industry ADR unit. I'll be giving you a tour and coaching today on some more detailed functions within campus. Looks like we have a smaller group today, and that's perfectly fine. We've done groups as big as about 100 and groups as small as 1 on some individual things I've done. So we will have a wide range of experiences of people who've either been in this session a number of times or people or for whom it might be their first time. So bear with each other, everybody. We are going to be going through, focusing today, as you can see on the first screen of our PowerPoint, about initiating disputes. That's going to be starting a dispute when you're filing a med request or a request for cert or a rehab request. And we're also going to show you the very simple additional function of filing a med response or a rehab response. I'll be doing some discussion with you through PowerPoint slides, and we'll also be going into the campus system, and I'll be showing you some demonstrations of the things I'm talking about. If anyone has questions, and we hope you do have some questions, we'd welcome you. I'll be hosting this today, and we also have Sandy Barnes, ADR supervisor, and Angie Anderson, who are helping on the technical end. If you have any questions that come up, you've got to trust that you're not the only one who has that question. So go ahead and let us know what's on your mind. Use the chat function in the WebEx. When you put your question in the chat, make sure that you address the question to everyone. If you have something come up, for whatever reason you don't have an option to send your question to everyone, send it to the moderator or send it to the host. See what you can do, and we'll see if one of us sees it. If you do put your question out and no one addresses it, we're not trying to ignore you. We just, for some reason, are not seeing it. Take your mic off and mute and let us know. So we're not going to make you hold your breath and hold all questions to the very end. As you put your questions up on the chat, we're going to try to hit them right away. We want to keep you with us. So we've got we're a couple minutes after 2, so we might as well get started. Sandy, do you have any other housekeeping issues that you wanted to share with everyone before we get into this?
No, I don't. I tried to set everybody to have permissions for the chat, so hopefully everyone has the everyone option, but I have nothing
Great.
further.
Okay. So our focus today is to talk about disputes and the initiating and responding to disputes. But I want to make sure that we start off at least with a bit of basics to make sure we're kind of level set with some terminology. This may be redundant to you, and if it is, that's great. It means you're already in the system and you're getting familiar with these words. And if you're not, then you really ought to know these words now, because things will make more sense to you later on if you've got the fundamental definitions. Two big definitions or concepts we have in campus are entities and transactions. Entities are, like it says, parties that are in the system. We've got a bunch of examples of them. These are people or companies, basically, that we're talking about. So an entity is not a medical request. An entity is not a claim. John Smith would be an entity. SFM would be an entity, for example. Transactions are, as you can see there, the things that are going to be worked on. And so your disputes are going to be a transaction. A claim will be a transaction. There's a whole list of things that are going to be that someone has to do something with, or someone needs to act on it. Those are transactions. Another common or set of terms that need to be pretty clear in your mind for using campus are the concept of claims and disputes. A claim, like it says there, is the injury itself. So a medical request is not a claim, but an injury on 1/1 of 20, that's a claim. So a person could, of course, have more than one injury. They can have more than one claim in the system. A dispute is just what it says. Your medical request is a dispute. A rehab request is a dispute. A request for cert is a dispute. We're also calling mediations dispute for simplicity's sake or consistency's sake, but we know that mediations, of course, are efforts to resolve disputes. And another way we look at disputes is calling them cases. So one claim, the injury on 1/1 of 20, could have multiple disputes / multiple cases. I'm going to stop there for just a second to let that sink in a little bit and see if there's any questions about those basic concepts and terms.
Hey, Brian, I'm not seeing anything in the chat right now, but we'll keep
Okay.
an eye on it.
Thanks, Angie. This thing hopefully is a little familiar or becoming familiar to many of you. This is your dashboard. When you are a user in campus, and that means you have registered yourself as a user, built out your profile, whether you're an adjuster, a defense lawyer, a medical provider, an employer, an insurer, or an injured worker. This is what you're going to have when you go into campus. We've got areas where you can initiate actions that need to be taken on a particular claim. We've got different notifications. We've got to tell you when something needs to be seen. Your calendar will show the events that you have scheduled. And very importantly, your queues show what you have available to be seen or to be worked on. So you'll see a tab that has the claims that you have access. Again, the claims are the injury dates. The disputes that you are currently working on, which will be like your medical requests and rehab requests, and the forms. Your forms, this is a running tally of all the forms that you file in campus. It's not going to be a problem that you're over many years. You're going to have quite a number of forms that you'll have filed, because any of those forms are going to be searchable or filterable by way of this little filter icon here. So you're going to be spending a lot of time pulling up your claims and your disputes, a lot of time submitting or responding to filings, and a lot of time filtering the claims and disputes that are in your tabs. part of the matter, the concept of disputes. We have addressed this in a couple of different trainings before, but many people may well not have been able to join us for those, so we're going to take a quick review of what we're talking about when we make a submission of a dispute. First of all, before I even talk about the specifics here, remember that Campus simply is the portal now for DLI. Anything you needed to submit at DLI in the past is going to need to come through Campus. Anything you needed to submit to OAH in the past is still going to go to OAH. This isn't a joint platform that replaces C-Track. OAH still has C-Track. C-Track is unchanged. So anything that needed to be filed at OAH still needs to be filed at OAH. Talking about Campus now, again, the DLI portal, not the OAH portal. This flowchart shows basically the steps that the system is going to take you through to build out a form that you're going to file, or to enable you to submit a form that you might need to upload. Whereas in today, what all you do is you build out that form in your office. The medical request, you do it on your template, or you handwrite it even on one of the forms you've copied out of the back of the desk book because you couldn't find a clean one. You're going to be now, instead of making it yourself in your office and then making the copies and mailing it in, and now it's done, you're going to be starting that process here in Campus. And so, as you would do in your offices, you're going to pick the claim that you're going to want to work on. You're going to start to populate your medical request in your offices. Now you're going to start to populate the medical request you're building by picking the claim you want. You're then going to decide, what are we trying to do? What do you want? Are you looking for a conference? Are you looking for a mediation? Or are you looking to just certify? You make some choices there. Then you decide on what the issues are. Are we looking for prism glasses? Are we looking for a terminal services? Are we looking to add placement, replace a QRC, pay some bills? Whatever those issues are, you would have entered onto the form in your office, you're now going to be entering those issues into the web form that is in Campus. Have some summaries of what you've done that you can see. And then instead of in your office where you'll sign it and you'll generate your affidavits of service, you're going to electronically sign the form here in Campus, and then you're going to have generated that we know and love already. So by going through this process, you will result in having for mediation, which is actually a bit of a new form, an RFA, a request for assistance, which may be a medical request or your rehab request, or a request for certification of dispute. So these forms are all being generated in Campus, and they're going to be served on the other parties electronically through Campus. One of the exceptions to the electronic service in Campus is that if a party does not have a user profile in Campus, they can't be electronically served because they don't really exist in Campus. And in this system, the employees are not required to have a user profile. So they might choose to, but if they don't, you'll need to copy that affidavit of service that you generated and print it out at your office and drop it in the mail to the employee, just like you do today. The issue of getting access to a claim is important because if you can't see the claim in Campus, you're not going to be able to respond to it or do something with it. You're not going to be able to see any of the documents which we've got sitting in Campus for your viewing pleasure. You can't really do anything. So the big questions that people have, and rightly so, are how do we get to see these claims? How do we get access to these claims? This is a bit of a slightly detailed summary of how to do that. I've showed you before the submit a filing button, which I told you you're going to be using a lot, and you'll click that button. You'll click the access to a case or claim. It'll give you some more drop downs, and it should be pretty apparent to you when you see the drop downs. One of them is file a notice of appearance or representation. You're going to click some more buttons to move you to the next step. It's going to ask you to pick which claim you are filing your notice of rep on or your notice of appearance. Because even like today, you don't just file a generic notice of rep, it's got to be on some particular claim. It's going to ask you to pick the party. If you're an employee's attorney, you're going to be needing to upload a retainer agreement signed by the employee, then you'll have that opportunity. Then you'll have an opportunity to do your affidavit of service, just like you do today, and then you'll submit it. So if you are uploading or if you're submitting a retainer agreement to get access to a claim or an access to the documents, you'll be uploading that. If you're generating a notice of appearance or notice of representation, those documents, as you know, aren't signed by the insurer or the employer, and so likewise in campus, they don't need to be signed and uploaded. Those documents are generated through the campus system, just like a medical request or a rehab request is generated. And then again, when you've completed the notice of appearance or the notice of representation or uploaded the retainer agreement, you'll then be needing to mail or serve by mail any parties that aren't in the system. And that's part of this service. If there are parties who are not the injured worker or the attorney for the injured worker, they also, well, if you're not the injured worker or a direct party to the claim, other people can get access to the claims also, just like they can today by having a signed appropriate authorization. And those authorizations can be uploaded as well. Just like today, we will review, our DLI staff reviews the authorizations, makes determinations on whether those authorizations are appropriate. And if they are, we'll give you access. The buttons will be flicked on, and you'll now be able to see the claim in your dashboard. I'm going to stop there for a second. Let everybody digest that for just a couple of moments and see if we've got any questions that come in. If so, then we'll talk about them. If not, we'll move on. And I will be taking you through to the actual campus system to go through all of these.
I see no questions yet, Brian.
Okay, thanks, Sandy. Oh, and I lost my spot. Where was I? Here's where we were. Notice this is where I was, right, Sandy?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I will go through, we'll spend a little bit more time going through just talking about what we're going to be doing for as initiating disputes, and then we'll get into the system. So, like I said earlier on in our meeting today, in our discussion, this initiate a dispute button in the campus dashboard is going to be very important because many things that you're going to want to do in campus start that way. And once you you can start it by your dashboard, or if you're in a dispute page already that you say it's popped up in your dashboard as a new dispute, and you click on the hyperlink to get to the dispute page, which has all the details on it, you'll be able to have an option to submit filings right out of the dispute page also. So 2 different ways to get in to submit something on a claim. Here's just an example of one of the pages that's involved in getting one of those forms done. When you want to decide you're going to be submitting something, you're going to pick you're going to look at the drop downs. It's kind of self-explanatory in a lot of ways, or intuitive at least. If you are saying you want to initiate a dispute, it's going to ask you to pick which one. You've got only 2 choices, either request a mediation or request an admin conference. So pretty clear. You'll pick one of them, and whichever one you pick will guide you to the rest of the build out of the form, which is going to be submitted. For mediations, we'll just note here that if you're asking for a mediation, you can work with our DLI staff to schedule a mediation on a date which everyone can agree to by way of emails, or we also have a function within Campus. This is a new function that we don't have right now, where parties can do what's called a poll, where someone will propose certain dates and certain times and certain mediators, and that poll will go to the other parties, who can then look at the proposed dates, times, and mediators and respond back for whether, yeah, that'll work, or that, yeah, that won't work. So that's what the concept of a poll is. It's to kind of manually share, schedule, share proposals for mediations based on someone's having looked at their calendar and making recommendations. Okay, so let's now head into the system itself, and I will try to go as slow as I need to go so that you guys are staying with me. We're going to talk about how we're going to find a claim and how we can submit a couple of things. One, a request for cert, and two, a medical or rehab request. I think we'll also talk about finding a medical or rehab response also. So here we are. This is the login screen for Campus. You'll each have your own login information, legal declarations, and a dashboard. Everybody's going to have a dashboard that looks pretty much like this. Depending on what kind of an entity you are, you may or may not have different tabs available to you. But as you can see, hopefully, it's ringing a bell for what I showed you earlier on. Got a section on notifications. You can see your calendar, which has your events which have been scheduled on it. And here you have the claims, which are again your injury dates, and your disputes. These are again things like a medical request or a rehab request or a request for cert. If you want to see, if you have access, these are all claims that I have access to, by the way. So if I'm an attorney, I'm probably going to have access to about 500 of these things. But what we'll do if we want to look for one in particular, I can always just do a filter, and I can choose which column I want to sort. I'll choose the employees column. So I'm going to pick the drop down. And then I could do Jones if there were any. So in other words, employees with the word Jones in it. I'd apply the filter. And in this case, I don't have any in my particular test environment that has Jones, but had I had any, they would show up. Oh, another to show you one that will work. Well, you can see it right there, but what if we want to use Art F? So I'm looking for any claims I have for Mr. F, and I would apply it, and there it's filtered me down. This is the only one there is. These values are not case sensitive. You can do a portion. So if you wanted Johnson, you could type in JOHN. You don't need to use caps. It's pretty wide read. It's a pretty powerful wild card in how the value concept works. So that's what you do if you want to be looking at sorting or filtering any of these particular columns you have. So let's now go further to see how we would see the documents and the disputes on a particular claim. So we can pick for now, let's assume we can see I do have access to Cleopatra's claim, her injury. So we will click on that. And here's a trick for using Campus. If I went to a left click like you'd normally do on a hyperlink, it'll replace this entire screen with Cleopatra's claimant screen. But I don't want to do that. I'd like to keep my main screen here, and I'm going to add her screen on a second tab. So what I'm going to do is do a right click, open a link in a new tab, and then now I can be in Cleopatra's screen. So I'm in Cleopatra's claim. And if I wanted to, I can toggle back to where I was. All right, so our goal here is to see Cleopatra's disputes and Cleopatra's documents. So her disputes, again, the claim is the injury. The disputes are like the request for cert, the medical request, the rehab request. So I'm going to go into Cleopatra's claims. Cases are another way to say disputes. here are her disputes. So we've got the disputes, by the way, all have a DS in front of them. Claims all have a CL number in front of them. So I'm going to right-click again to open this up because I want to see not just Cleopatra's claim screen, I want to see her dispute screen for that particular dispute, which was filed on October 15th. And I can go, it's created, and now I'm in the dispute. So you can, there's a bunch of information that you can review. This is information which is populated large, some from the first report of injury, some from the medical request or rehab request, which would have been filed. And we can see here, it's a question equipment. Now, let's see, this is basically a way of looking at the medical request, except we've just kind of taken it apart and set the different pieces of it in a consistent pattern. But what if we want to look at the medical request itself? We want to be able to send it. We're an attorney. We want to be able to send it to our client to discuss it by email, or we're an employer and we're an employer and insurer and we've been served with a medical request. We just got defense counsel and we want to send it to defense counsel so they can see it. So what we would do is we can go to the document by clicking on the document tab. And here's the request for assistance. Now, this in our test environment right now, I believe it's not going to actually show display in full for us, but this is what you would do to get to the document itself. And that will be a medical request, which looks like what we've got right now. Oh, it actually is working. So we are getting closer to go live. So I guess all the lights are being turned on. So this is our medical request. Should look pretty familiar to you. Parties, issues. And the form, by the way, is called a request for assistance. So it's used as a medical request or a rehab request, and whether it's one or the other, that's going to depend on which of these boxes you've populated. There's an opportunity for additional details, which is, as you guys will be thinking about, that narrative box on page 2 of your rehab request or your med request. You can still enter things in a free form way, and it's going to be populated here. The affidavit of service is attached to it also, and this is what would have been created when someone was generating the medical request or rehab request. And if anyone had attachments to the medical request or the rehab request, and they had submitted those or uploaded them when they were in the process of generating this form, those attachments would be here. Whether it be Word document turned into a PDF, which has some narrative explanation, or if it has a number of medical records. So from this screen, you started by being in the claim, you went to the dispute, and from the dispute, you went to the documents, and from the documents, you picked the one you wanted to see. You can either print it straight from here to your desk, or you can download it, and by downloading it, you can send it to your own drive at your own office, and once it's in your own drive, you can email it to whoever you need. All right, so I'm going to leave this screen. I am in Cleopatra's screen. I'm going to leave that one too.
Brian,
Yes, Sandy.
a question is, where would it show if this was already certified as a dispute?
It would show on the main screen of the dispute. This is again the dispute screen. It's got a DS on it. It says medical dispute. And under the dispute details, we have a section on certification. So had this claim been certified already, the certification would populate here. The certification, the fact of the certification, and the date on which it was certified. So this will be able to tell people and the arbitrator that the matter has not yet been certified. It's a good question. And that happens now. Sometimes people file their request for certification first and then wait for the certification, then file their request. Other people will file the request and the certification request at the same time. Other times, someone will file a med request or a rehab request without a request for cert, and then we on our end will see that and we'll go through the certification process. Okay. So let us now go back to the screen. I'm going to leave the dispute that we were looking at. And one of the simple ways to get to your main screen is to, well, in this case, we could just go back to the tab that we're behind. Otherwise, you could click this icon here. So let's take a bit of a review of how to actually submit a filing. So this is we're going to have a similar process to if we want to request certification, if we want to file a medical dispute or a rehab dispute. So we're going to go to our box on submit a filing. Click on that box. We're going to initiate a dispute. This is the start of that process I was showing you, and that flow chart, which could look a little intimidating, but actually isn't. It just shows the kinds of steps that you're going to follow. And actually, you can see all these steps right here. We're on step 1. So we're going to I want to file a medical request or a request for cert on Cleopatra Calderon. So I happen to know already that her CL number is CL023880415, and her last name is Calderon. This is one of 3 ways we can locate a claim. Another way you could provide this information. Third way you could provide this information. I just choose to do this one because it's simple. So now we're going to the So we've identified the claim, and they say this is the claim we have for that number. It's the date of injury of that. So if I say it looks good to me, I'm going to go in. Again, think about what we're doing here, which is building out a dispute. Either it's a medical request or a rehab request or a request for cert. So we're populating, instead of populating the form at our desk, at our office, we're populating it right here in the system. And anytime we want, we can stop and save it as a draft. It'll be saved in the documents in our dashboard. And if we want to go back to it later, we can pull it up. So you're not stuck once you get started on it. It's not like taking an SAT or something. So we're going to choose the party. Who do we represent? We'll say we represent Mall Snacks. All right, and who are the other parties in this dispute? Cleopatra Lumbermans. These choices would have been already pre-populated in all likelihood based on the first report of injury because the claim exists in the system because someone would have filed the FROI. So let's go to next. And now what do we want? We've identified the claim. We've identified the party that we represent. What do we want to do? Let's say we're going to request an admin conference. If this is what we want for a med request or a rehab request. So now we're going to have a number of different things to fill out. Let's say it's a rehab request that we're going to do. It's a rehab issue we have. We want to add some issues. Maybe we'll say service, and the service. We've got a couple of drop downs in all of these, and you just got to pick whichever the drop downs is the most closely matched. Remembering again that you can always add some free-form narrative typing also. So let's choose service, which the following applies. Maybe right now we're going to say plan duration, and let's say termination. What kind of dispute we can freeform here. So request termination for a plan for failure to cooperate. And remember, you'll be able to submit attachments. So, even today, we, the arbitrators, we don't need detailed argument in the rehab requests themselves. The status is open. Okay. Oh, and here's a bit of a summary, like I was telling you earlier, that is showing us how our form is being built out. Our attachments. Maybe I've got some things I want to show I have some job logs I want to submit. Maybe I have a rehab report I want to submit, a letter from the employer. Whatever I have, I can attach just like I can today. I can do it in Campus also. You can attach whatever you want as long as it's in a PDF format. So if you've got a narrative argument in a Word document, which you save, then if you want to submit it, you just got to save that Word document into a PDF document. So we'll just add something. This is just a test I use. It's a PDF. There's nothing on it, but let's just pretend that is a couple of rehab reports that I had that I wanted to submit. The category, again, anytime there's a drop down, just pick what fits best. We'll just say attachment. Document type, we don't have any choices there. Actually, I think we're going to have a problem because it's liking that and it's not liking what I'm doing here. I'm going to cancel. Try it again. Left click on drag, go into your computer at your desk in your office, pick whichever PDF you want. I am now not actually going to pick a document category. I'm going to just go for a document type. It's something under a 106 conference. And if I wanted to put a description, I can, but there's no asterisk there, so I don't actually have to put anything. And then I'm going to upload it. So whether I have 1 or 100 documents that I wanted to attach, they would be all right here. We don't need to have any additional details if we want. You can throw something else in there if you wish. Save it again if you're not sure. If you got to get a new cup of coffee or have someone take a look at it, you can save it if you want. Next step, we don't have any claims that are associated with it. Here's parties we've already chosen. Now we have some information about who we are. Herbert Garrison. Let's see if I've got his attorney ID number. Bear with me for just a sec here. I'm going to go get that in another screen. I'm getting there. Bear with for just a minute. Okay, so I've got Garrison's. You know what? I don't think I have a. I don't think I have an attorney ID for Herbert Garrison. So this is not actually not gonna be able to complete this. But
Brian?
had I attorney's ID, oh yeah, Sandy, do you happen to have it?
No, I don't, and you'd think I would, but we do have a question. How does someone
Okay.
else review the draft? So let's say
Good
you
question.
saved your request
Yep.
for assistance rehab.
You've saved it. What you'll need to do is have someone physically look at your computer. You're not going to be able to forward the draft over to someone else, to their campus system. What you could do would be you could highlight some things and do a screenshot, but unfortunately we can't. Campus is not designed that you can share a draft with someone else.
So Brian, let's say the assistant has created this medical request or rehab request, and now they've saved it as a draft. Could the attorney log into their campus and see it under documents as a draft?
They could not.
Okay.
The only way the attorney do that, the only person who can see the draft, person who created the draft. So if the attorney, if someone were to go in as the paralegal under the paralegal's login information, they could see what the paralegal's entire desktop. But unfortunately, we can't have. It's not designed so that if a paralegal or a claim adjuster has got this far and they want their supervisor or their supervising attorney to take a look at it, they're not going to be able to share the draft to someone else.
Okay, so another question was, not even if a relationship is established.
That's correct. That's a very
Okay.
good question. If there's a relationship, you'll be able to see the claims and you'll be able to see the documents which were submitted, but you will not be able to see the drafts.
Okay, next question. Could the paralegal print out the draft to show to the attorney?
I don't believe that the system is designed to print a partial document, unfortunately. It can be printed and downloaded once it is filed, but while it is in draft stage, I do not believe that there is a function where you can have it show up in its medical request form, as we know, and share that with other people.
That's all we have for questions.
Okay. So I can't go through and actually submit it. Sorry, what was
The
that,
one
Sandy?
question for attorneys, when they're putting in their electronic signature, does it matter what I put in? William Preston, I put in what I Ryan?
I believe you have to put in the exact name.
Thank you.
And I think I found that a couple of times also.
Right, and that's why I thought I wanted to put it to people. So if you have to be sure to understand how you've registered and use name going forward. And the we have is, what does the preview button do?
Well, you know what? I'd forgotten about our preview button. You know what? I was mistaken. I have that, or I must have forgotten that you can actually look at it right here. So this has not been submitted. You know what? I thank whoever asked that question. This document has not been submitted yet. And while I thought that we couldn't see it in its full form, or at least its partial form, apparently we can. So from here, it looks like we could download it or print it. I think we need to quote for the person who asked that question. Yeah. So, thank you for asking that, whoever that was. And if you're in this, you can apparently preview even if you're not completely finished. And I know I'm not completely finished because I haven't added my attorney ID. I haven't confirmed the name of the attorney, and I haven't submitted it. So if you are a paralegal or a legal assistant and you're wanting to file a medical request or request for assistance on behalf of the attorney, you will need to have the proper permissions set up by your firm's administrator. And if you have that, then you basically can do this. You can do this on behalf of the attorney. So you can be putting your name here, and the attorney's information will be there. So needing and a personal signature. It's all electronically signed. Okay. Any other questions right now, Sandy? These were some good ones.
I see nothing right now. I have a question.
Okay. We could take a look at another filing. If we were in Cleopatra's claim, let's see, I'm going to say if we were in Dwight's claim, we are the response party. So someone had filed a dispute on Dwight Schrute. And let's say the dispute was this medical dispute, and I'm just going to it right now, but if it's a new dispute that you were served on, it'll show up in your big queue under documents that you're going to need to look at. So I'm in the medical dispute now, and I need to file response, medical response. Like I told you before, there's two ways that we can submit filings, and one of them was by the top button when we were on our main home screen, which is to submit a filing, was to or submit a dispute. Here, we're in the dispute already. So in other words, we're in the medical request, and we can choose here for filing our response. Just like that. Save that. And now this is going to ask us, who are we representing? And it's going to take us through a number of different topics, populating different boxes, just like we did before. Well, I mean, a little bit or similar to the way we did before. And it will build out your medical or your rehab response. We could do
Brian,
another little, yes.
on that last page where you were identifying who was your client or who you're representing,
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to point out that if you're, for example, representing the employer and insurer, currently the campus system doesn't allow you to click both those names.
Right. That's a good point, Sandy. And when you're submitting a filing too, it doesn't need you to that you're presenting both the employer and the insurer. It requires you simply to click that you're representing at least one of them. So just click one, and we found it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which one it is. Another things that can be submitted would be the request for certification. So I'm going to go to initiate dispute. Well, actually, no, I don't think we need to do that because it's pretty much the same thing as following submission of a medical request. You're going to identify the claim, identify the parties, what's the service you want, and instead of instead of an administrative conference, it's going to be certification that you're requesting. Identify the dispute, take care of the housekeeping with the affidavit of service, and submit it. So with that, let's go back into our PowerPoint now. We've talked about submitting a request for cert. We've talked about submitting initiating a dispute, how to access and locate a claim. We have had another session on accessing claims already, but just briefly, I will go through some of two. If you want to submit an authorization, actually, I think we did talk about that. If you're going to want to try to get a claim and you're representing one of the primary parties, you're going to click access to a claim. What are you trying to do? File a notice of appearance or submit an authorization. If you are like a defense lawyer and you've sent out some discovery, you've got authorization sent out for the old injuries, the employees signed them, they've sent them back to you. So now you're trying to get the copy of that injury or an access to that injury from 1978. What you do there would be to submit the authorization. But if it were a retainer agreement or a notice of appearance, lost me there. I'm going to So filing, access a claim, file a notice of appearance or rep. This is going to be a similar process of the creation of the medical request, the rehab request, or the request for cert. You're going to identify the claim you're on. You're going to identify who you're representing. You're going to enter the appearance by either making a declaration that you're representing this entity, or you're uploading the retainer agreement, and then you'll do your affidavit of service. Similar concept. Okay. Let's go back into our one thing we didn't talk about is, but is going to be done the same way, is to, as we've been showing, is the amending of a dispute. That's going to happen too. Sometimes you might have you're going to have a medical request and you're going to want to add an additional issue to it. It wasn't just physical therapy bills being paid. Now you're going to need prescription sunglasses as well, and you want to make sure you get those issues in there so that we don't have counsel saying we can't expand the issues at the rehab or the med conference. So to do that, you're going to go through the same process of submitting a filing, and this time just choosing amendment. And it'll go through the same kind of steps as we've just seen now to change the issues. You'll do a new affidavit of service, and it'll be either, like we would have done before, electronically served on those entities which are in the system, or if they need to be mailed, you'll print the document, print the affidavit of service, and drop it in the mail to whoever needs to be served by mail. We don't ask for any proof that you did actually drop it in the mail that day that you did the affidavit of service. That's something that you simply need to do just like you do today. If you're doing an affidavit of service and submitting it to us, we trust that you sent it in the mail on the day you said you did. So we don't need to go into the amendment because it's going to be the same process. And we've also already talked about, or I've showed you where we will do the response to a request. If you are served with a request, you will have a pop-up or you'll have a drop-down option, which will be to file the response.
Brian, once a request is filed, how are the attorneys notified through campus?
That's another good question. Anything that you file in campus, anything that you generate, anything that you upload to campus will give you an opportunity to do the affidavit of service. So the amended medical request will generate an affidavit of service. The rehab response will generate the affidavit of service. A motion to intervene will, or if you're looking to just upload some additional documents, you will be able to generate an affidavit of service there also.
As a part of your attorney to the receive an email from campus advising that something's been filed, or how does that?
Yes, my understanding is that you will get an email when there has been a new document which has been served on you. The email won't contain a link to the document itself. You'll need to go into the campus system and find it. And as you've seen, there's a couple of big numbers on your campus dashboard that show you when there's new documents there that you need to look at. But that was also another good question. We're getting some really good ones today, don't you think, Sandy?
I agree.
Some of you file motions to intervene on behalf of Essentia or Twin City Orthopedic or whoever it may be. That we do through campus also. We go to submit a filing. In this case, the intervener, as we know, doesn't initiate a dispute. Well, they can, I suppose, if they're filing a medical request over a fee scheduling issue, they can do that. But the intervener comes in to access a claim. And to do that, we will go to access a claim and file a motion to intervene. Again, these drop downs are pretty self-explanatory, and you just, if what you think isn't there, then maybe I wanted to file a rehab request. I thought I needed to do it by way of accessing the claim, but I don't see anything about filing a medical request or a request for dispute. So maybe that's the wrong one. So I'm going to go back into submit a filing, access a claim. See, no, it's not there. So it mustn't be an access a claim. Dispute. It is. This is how I'm starting to build out a dispute. So you can play around in this once you get access to it and see what you might want to take some notes for yourself on what kind of drop downs or in what kind of screens, or just take a look at it and you'll start to get used to what is found where under these different drop downs. So what was I going to do? The motion to intervene. Yes, I found that under access to claim. I want to do a motion to intervene. Oh, you're probably thinking, okay, yep, right, seen that before. You're going to identify the claim. Got 3 ways to do that. You're going to enter some information on who the intervener is and who you are. Add some information on their claim. There'll be an opportunity to upload whatever you want, and of course, at the end there will be a service to the parties, your affidavit of service. So there's a similarity and a consistency to how these different forms get done. Even though the forms themselves are different, there's a similarity to how we're proceeding to creating them. All right.
Brian, a question is, how are the notices of right to intervene that are done by attorneys, how are those handled?
Okay. Another good question. Okay. So if we're there's one that's been started, Cleopatra claim, well, claim has been filed, that's the injury again. And I'm just going to go find a sample dispute. Let's find a dispute on Cleopatra's claim. Let's take this medical dispute here. All right. So when you're doing the notices of right to intervene, that is not a campus function, as you would do it exactly as you're doing it right now, which is take your firm's letterhead and form and build out that notice of right to intervene. Now you've got those 6 notices of right to intervene, and you want to get those uploaded, and so they're done. Your work is done as far as putting the interveners on notice, but you want to let DLI know so that we can, as we often will ask the lawyers, can you please send us the notices of right to intervene that you've sent so that we can put them on notice of the conference, and so that we can know that we're not doing the conference until the potential interveners have had their appropriate statutory time to respond and file their intervention. So you want to get those notices to us. And the way to do that would be to go to the dispute that those notices were filed on. We can submit a filing, and we can do an other filing. So again, submit a filing, other filing. Now it simply asks it. This is basically a free form, a free form filing upload. So if someone wants to get us those notices of right to intervene, and they've got the 6 of them, they're sitting there in a PDF format. All you need to do is upload the filing. So I'm going to go find those 6 PDFs. Here they are, my 6 PDFs of notices of right to intervene. And what is it? We don't have a whole lot of drop-down choices. We're just going to pick correspondence to department. We might do a description here, even though we don't have to, because doesn't have an asterisk in it. So we could say notices of right to intervene, and then upload it. So there it is. There's our 6 intervention notices. Just pretending we don't have any supporting attachments that we need. We're now going to, might not ask for the attorney ID. Herbert Garrison, couple legal verify. So now here's our service. Who do we want to serve? All the people. And here is a sneak peek at what's going to happen on that affidavit of service. As we can see, Cleopatra in this case does have a system or a a user profile in Campus, so she can be served electronically. Mall Snacks and Lumbermans apparently do not have a profile yet, so we'll need to mail it to them. But in the real world, Mall Snacks and Lumbermans will need to have a profile because that's how they will be able to submit things. Another couple more declarations. Herbert. So again, what we're doing here is we're pretending that we're going to be submitting our 6 different notices of right to intervene. Got a little bit of a lag right now because it is still technically a test environment. All right, not going to make you just stare at a spinning green line. So this one isn't going today, but that's okay. That's exactly what you would have done. Once it's done, that document would now be submitted. The affidavit of service would be there. You can then look at it like you can look at the medical request. Look at it, view it, print it, download it, whatever you want once it's been uploaded. Okay, so let's just get out of that. And I'm just going to take a look to see that, yeah, it's still spinning. Okay. So that's how we would address handling the notices of right to intervene.
Okay, we've had a question. How many pages or how large a document can be uploaded into Campus?
I don't have the answer to that. Sandy, do you have any ideas?
My understanding is it's quite large, and I wish I could give you a definition of large, but I believe it can manage quite a number of pages.
My guess is that it went. My guess is that the amount that you would be allowed to upload would be probably more than the amount an arbitrator is going to want to see in a medical conference. How's that for a good answer?
That's a good answer.
So now that it's submitted, actually, we can take a look at it, and it would in the forms that you filed, by the way. So here it is, test attachment, and so you can pretend this is not just a blank piece of paper that says test attachment, but pretend it's your PDFs of all those notices of appearance that hopefully will be a reasonable number. Well, if it was medical requests, medical records, hopefully a reasonable number. This will have your affidavit of service, which splits out the electronic service part and the mail service part. So you don't need a separate affidavit of service for the electronic ones and the mail entities. It's one in the same. So because Mall Snacks and Lumbermans are being served by mail, you're going to need to print this or download it and then print it in your office and mail it that day, as you would normally have to do today. I got a glance at a question that came up, Sandy, about submitting pre-mediation statements. And I cannot, Sandy, do we want those submitted also here? Or perhaps are we going to have those submitted just by email, as is happening today, directly to the mediator?
They can do it directly to the mediator. They're confidential mediation submissions. There is in Campus a way to submit those so that they are kept confidential, and only the mediator assigned to the mediation will see those. And I believe we'll probably run through that during our scheduling and calendaring, which will cover scheduling of mediations and stuff. They can submit them through Campus. Is my understanding, and it will be walled off so other parties could not see that submission, but they can always still submit them directly to the mediator.
Perfect. So I can't demonstrate that today, but know that Campus will have that function. And if that function is not made clear or publicized by the time we go live, just give us a call and we'll help you. We'll help you through it. Motions to intervene. Here's some more just screenshots from what we've just gone through, including the uploading of any documents, picking the parties that you're going to include in your affidavit of service. And we've just done that. Filing a form with an affidavit of service, we've just done that also. We've talked about anytime you're going to be uploading something or generating a new form in Campus, you will have the opportunity to serve it on the other pertinent parties. And you don't have to just serve it on the primary parties. If you want to serve it on someone else also, the medical provider that is not yet intervened, you want to serve the medical request on them, you'll be able to add a party to the service list. This we've already talked about too. Through looking at the Campus test environment, we are shown in Campus the service method, and I showed you how in Cleopatra's claim, Cleopatra had the electronic service, and the employer and the insurer had the service by mail. And like I was said, where you can add a service recipient, that's this button, this bullet here. That would be if you wanted to, for example, add a medical provider that isn't a primary party to the claim. Again, we've already been through how we're going to be doing a service by adding different recipients. Legal declarations, put the name, nothing new. Service process designates. We do have some specific trainings which are being done now. One was done this week. Another one is being done on the 21st of October. I don't have that exact training date, but watch for that, or if you don't see it, call us. This will be focused on the administrators of the law firms and the insurance companies, because it's the administrators that set up basically the different permissions of the people within your organizations. Who has access to whose claims, who receives service of process, who is able to file on behalf of other people, etc., etc. So all that is the work of the administrator of your organization. If you don't know who the administrator of your organization is, you may want to ask your supervisors or your attorney just so that you can have some good communication going on, because each individual person does not have the right to make the permissions that that person will have. The administrator has the right to assign and designate the different permissions. And who gets served, that's one of those permissions. So again, this is not something I'm going to go into today. This will be covered. There is some discussion of setting up service process designees and other administrative roles in the manual for external users, which is on our website, or you can attend the training, which is scheduled for October 21st. Document details. We have already seen how to get to a document. We did that much earlier on. You can look at the forms which you filed, which I was telling you that anything you filed will be included in that tab, and you can search for what you want by using the filter button. And when you're in a document, you'll be able to see information about it, and you'll be able to use your choices to either print it or download it. Again, once downloaded to your computer at your desk or at your office, and you can send it to whoever you feel should have it. Thank you so much for joining us. It's 3:05 or 3:07.
Hang on a minute, Brian. We got a couple questions.
Okay. Yep, we can stay on. If anyone wants to drop off now, we'll give you 25 or 23 minutes back. If people want to continue to stay until 3:30, we're happy to answer questions as long as they keep coming in.
All right, here's our question. Is there a draft authorization for granting access that we can download that specifically addresses what will be required for granting access to a claim? I'm not aware of a draft authorization.
I don't think there is. Yeah, I don't think there is either, Sandy. It's basic information about your claim, about the claim that anyone is going to have. There's not a lot. There's not a lot to it. If you know the employer, you know the employee, you're going to know all that already.
It's a pretty standard authorization. That's always been used.
Yeah.
And the next question, can we have access to the presentation slides for quick reference in addition to the external technical manual?
Got that, Sandy?
I did note that the slide deck and a recording of this session will be posted on the DLI website with the other campus information. Although it does take, there's a couple days time delay with trying to pull the recordings. So I would just watch our website for that, and it will get posted there along with the external technical manual. And I would highly recommend that you look. We have got some really good quick reference guides, such as how to file a motion to intervene, getting access to a claim. And there are some YouTube videos that 3-4 minutes, but again, they kind of cover some common steps or functions within campus. The videos run 3 to 4 minutes. So I would encourage you to look at those, the quick reference guides you can, download or print. So these, for today's session, it should be there probably early next week.
Great, Sandy, thanks.
And I don't see any other questions.
But as a kind of a rule of thumb, as far as, well, am I going to need to generate a form or upload a form for the authorization? If today you need to submit an authorization signed by the employee to get something, you're going to need it in campus also. That's your rule of thumb. So what you need in order to get an authorization to a document is no different. If an employee needed to sign a release to you before, they're going to need to sign a release in campus. And if it's a signed release with the employee's signature, you're going to need to upload it. If it's like a notice of appearance or notice of rep for an employer and insurer that doesn't need a signature, it's going to be a form that can be created in the system.
Sorry, Brian, I was muted. There's one more question. It says, what if the date of entry is disputed? If there's a dispute over a date of entry, I'm assuming you would need to be filing a claim petition because there's a dispute over whether the injury is work-related or if it occurred. And things that need to be filed at OAH through C-TRAC will continue to need to be filed at OAH and C-TRAC. If it's OAH jurisdiction, it gets filed there. If it's DLI jurisdiction, it gets filed through campus. So I think with that type of, if you've got a dispute over an actual date of injury, likely it would go through as a claim petition.
Right. People do ask questions.
Yeah.
People do ask some questions about a date of a Gillette injury. Well, that's no change from the way things are today. Obviously, we all know that a Gillette injury can be assigned a date depending on whatever it might be. That doesn't change. So, however, the decision was made to pick the date of a Gillette for the filing of a FROI today, that will not change at all once we go live in campus. The date is what someone chooses it to be, and it may be disputed, it may not be disputed.
Did that answer the question? Okay. We have another question. Currently, our authorization indicates access to any and all injuries. Currently, in campus, the current process is you need to have a signed authorization for each day of entry. We are working on a process for the any and all because we recognize that a lot of law firms, insurance companies submit any and all to get all dates of entry. So we are working on a process for that, and we should have a message going out on that within the next day or so. But if you want access, you will have to submit an authorization for each date of entry to gain access until we get the process issued.
Thanks, Sandy.
Great questions.
Yeah, these are fantastic questions today. And on our website, there are ways to reach us by email, by phone. You know how to reach us. So we want to be here for you. We want to help you. All right, I think we should let it go, Sandy. Thanks again. Thanks again for joining, everybody. This is again Brian Mack, having talked to you about how to manage disputes and documents in campus. Sandy Barnes, my supervisor, thanks so much for helping out today.
No problem. Thank you, everybody. Great questions. Bye.
I actually got to talk to Sandy. I'll play back. Hey, Sandy. It's so nice that we don't have a technical problem. Yeah. Help! Help! Yes. No, that's no, that's great. Yeah, yeah. So thanks for throwing me the softballs. Yes, yes. That you know that I don't know the answer to. Yeah. I agree. I agree. Right. Why, yeah, why the hell did it kick me out in the middle of this thing? I didn't think there was any screens that I wasn't touching for so long. Right. Thanks. I thought we're a nice team today. I think you were able to step in smoothly. Yeah, it felt very smooth today. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Lisa Wichterman just wrote, by the way, she thought it went very nicely, so that's good. Good to hear from. Oh, bummer. Yeah. 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 Well, Lisa Wichterman can spread the word over upstairs that we're doing all right down here. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Frances getting into it. She's having a second meeting with me, and like you saw, I sent you the email. She's inviting other people, her buddies, to come in too. Yep. Hey, do you know if Denise Holmes is still doing any trainings upstairs on the CRT end? I haven't talked to Denise in a long time, but she sure did a nice job. Okay. Technical? Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, it's the whole unit. We have the luxury of, I mean, really, it's a luxury of me and Aaron being able to do this stuff because you have the luxury of being able to, help spread out some of some of the work. And you've got the rest of our team that's willing to accept a bit more of a workload without pulling out the pitchforks. It all, it takes all of it. Yeah, sure. That's right. Yeah. It was good. Thanks so much, Sandy. Bye bye.